here for the ramp monthly discussion. Let's see, one more reminder to everybody. Somebody's on. Who do we have on right now? If you want to put your question out there or comments. The goal of this chat is to answer your questions about the ramp. Right now I have one person that's on, and it's one-on-one. If you have a question for me, fire away. Should have access to a Q&A section on the left-hand panel, and you can write in your question. Questions, folks, please put them on in the Q&A chat. Right now we got a 2-on-1 scenario, so if you have questions, by all means ask them. This is a discussion about the recognized ASCA model program, trying to get your program to that level. Many of you probably don't even realize that you're already doing a lot of the things towards it, so feel free to ask any questions. Put that out there as a comment right now. If you have any questions, put them down into the Q&A section on the left-hand panel. If you're having trouble with that, you can always put it in the chat box as well. Since we've got such a small group right now, let's try to keep it individualized instead of just a generic lecture. So it's more fun for me. I don't need to sit here and lecture for 2 people. I think, Jill, you said you're on. We can't see or hear me. You may want to just check your settings on your computer. Make sure that the audio is on. I know I've got an audio test done on mine beforehand, and I could see the volume working on mine. You can hear my audio. Maybe just check your own computer. Make sure your audio settings are on. And if you have a speaker too on the computer, sometimes there's one on the monitor, and another time it's in the computer itself. If you have a laptop computer, you can check those settings so you can hear me. In the future, if you're going to have this small of a group, you could always do it as a Google Hangout instead of a Google, more of a Google discussion in Google Hangout. If there's any comments, like I said, any comments, or if you want to put it into the chat column, both options are on the left-hand side on the panel when you log in. Feel free to ask away. For 2, no questions yet. Well, like I said, if you have a question, leave me a comment. Left-hand panel, there's an option that says Q&A. please type in your questions into the Q&A, and that way I can better address where you'd like to get started or what questions you have about the ramp. And while we wait for those, and one of the things that I can share with you is share your screen here. So one of the things that was helpful for me in getting started for the ramp was just even learning what it was and what the expectation was. So what I shared on my screen here is something called the scoring rubric, and it's available on the ASCA website. So if you go to schoolcounselor.org and go under the ramp section, I can show you where that is. I'd say that this would be a good place to start. This, and also, let me go out to it. So under the ASCA National Model website, there is a section on the website, as I mentioned, if you go under School Counselor, American School Counselor's website, and then you go under, we'll go through it just so you can kind of see it. I'm a visual person. So on the School Counselor website, if you click on ASCA National Model, and then you click on ramp on the left-hand side here. Then you got a whole bunch of options available to you. It tells you a little bit about ramp, and then it also will tell you some, whether it's helpful tips or what have you. I like to start under ramp resources, where I would direct all of you, and that's where you can find the scoring rubric right here. And that scoring rubric was basically for each section of the ramp that you have to prepare. Anything from vision to your closing the gap reports, and we'll talk about that later Google Hangout. Those would be the things that it'll tell you in order to get a 5 in this section and 5 total points, which is the most you can get in each section. These are the things that you need to make sure are available in your plan. So you can go out there and take a look at the scoring rubric. It'll help you prepare for making sure, if you look over your plan and the fine-tooth comb, does it have all the components to make sure that you're going to qualify for enough points. The place that I would say I really started, like my first starting point, was if I went out to the examples. So I went out here, I looked at the scoring rubric, but then really going under the examples. This was by far the like gold to me. At the time, I'm from New Jersey, so at the time we did not have a single school in the state that was a ramp school. Currently mine is the only one in the state. Hopefully not for much longer after doing these monthly discussions and trying to help others. But I needed to kind of get some framework or some context to what does it look like? What does my ramp program have to look like? What are things that I should be doing? And I tell you, just even going through and looking at some of these other model ramp schools that are out there, some other sample applications that are out there, it actually walks you through all the pieces of the ramp application, and it also gives you examples of, I'm going to Rocky Mountain High School here, of just what other, I give you good ideas of what other schools are doing as possible interventions, but even some possible templates that you can borrow, we'll say, and build off of. So you're not starting from absolutely from scratch. So this is nice because you can click on any one of these things here, and you can see the vision statement for this particular school. You can see their narrative, how they came up with it. You can go under program goals, and this would be after you get a handle on the components and even some ideas of what's out there and the templates. I would say the first place I would start in any ramp program or getting yourself off the ground would be to start to develop program goals. This time of the year I might recommend a slightly different approach, but getting yourself comfortable with writing SMART goals and program goals with your district. If you're by yourself, getting comfortable with yourself and with your administrator. If you're in a school with multiple school counselors, it's getting all of you on the same page. And it's really, it's a great exercise because really you're going to get the opportunity to see is what you're doing making an impact for students. Do I need to leave it as is? It's working great. Do I need to tweak it and modify it because one thing's not working well? Do I need to just scrap it entirely? It's not working and really put in something that makes more sense. So the program goals is really, I'd say, the place that I would really recommend you start. It gives you a good perspective, like I said, of again, where to start, and it really gives you a good picture to sell your program later too. You could say, these are the goals that we set for the year, the program goals, and then maybe you have it as a presentation to your board of education, or your principal, or your superintendent, maybe even your whole staff, to demonstrate the impact of what you're doing as a school counselor and how it's impacting the students. So as an example, this is one of the downloads from one of the schools that are REV schools. And this is their template that they use. This is not a required template. It shows that what their program goals are. And this is what they're getting a lot of ancillary data along with it. But that's one example. Either if you're in elementary school or even middle school, there are samples out there for everything. So you can go out there and say, what is this school doing for their program goals? Here we go, we're out there and we're looking at much more descriptive. They've got school program goals. And let's say, for example, we're going to pick the third one here. Decrease the number of the students in grades 6 through 8 who are failing in class at the end of the first 9 weeks, and reduce that from 70 to 20 by the end of the fourth 9 weeks. So it's really taking a period of time beforehand and a period of time after, and it's looking at before and after. 9 weeks before, 9 weeks after the intervention, or with the intervention, was it successful? And obviously, you would not necessarily use those numbers 70 and 20. And maybe even your time frame of the before and after might be different. But you would want to generate that information of what's right for your district, as well as what's right for your school data. I know that there's a program template. A good resource would be the ASCA National Model Book, because it comes with some of the resources from the ASCA National Model with the school profile report. And what the school profile report does is it lets you look at all of the school data, and you're basically plugging in your school data, and you're saying, again, what's working, what's not working across multiple years. That way, you have a good sense of what worked, where you need to focus your resources. So I'm going to try to bring up an example here for you. Bear with me as I bring it up here. Example here. I'm going to shift over there right now. There it is. So what you're looking at right now is a sample of a segment of the school profile report. And if anybody wants the template of the school profile report, by all means, you can reach out to me in the comments here with your email address or something along those lines, and I would be glad to forward this out to you. Or even if you shoot me an email or post a response to Google Plus, again, I will get the template out there. I'm glad to share. But if you look here in the middle, under dropout rate, so this is a high school example. Now, some of the other pieces are not filled in here. I'm just trying to illustrate some pieces of data here for you. But where this would be helpful is over a period of years, you can see for each of these school years, you see a 1, 2, 3, 4, a 6-year snapshot and the dropout trend. So how many students dropped out and the percent of the total population. And also you can see it by students with disabilities. So how many of those, let's say 24 in 2009-10, that dropped out were special education. What percentage of the population that dropped out were special ed? So this kind of data can tell you, trends as well as increases and decreases, or areas that you need to really focus more attention And that is really what the essence is of developing your program goals. And that's really what the essence is of trying to find a closing the gap goal to focus on. So a good closing the gap goal to really focus on would be you identify after looking at 3 years of school data that the number of special ed students is disproportionately high in the number of dropouts. Or maybe with your school data, you have a disproportionately high number of American Indian students are not graduating on time. Looking at it from the graduation rate, from the indirect, not the indirect, the inverse of dropout. Maybe you're looking at your attendance rate and you find that over the years there's been a steady decline. Maybe there's been a steady increase, but you see one of the subpopulations, like maybe your Hispanic or even your white population, has a disproportionately high number of students not attending school, and the attendance rate is much lower, let's say, for that group. Maybe you want to do a closing the gap goal. Maybe it's one of your program goals, maybe it's one of your interventions, maybe it's just your closing the gap goal. But those are the things that you can really take and then focus on, and then develop them into those program goals, because that's really the heart of what you're doing in your school counseling program. You're saying, am I focusing on something that's important? How do I know it's important? And how do I prove that what I did was successful? I think that is really the essence of what we're supposed to be doing as school counselors. We're supposed to be here for the student. We're supposed to be using and assessing school data to make sure that we're addressing those things that need to be addressed, that no group is left out, and no child is left behind, to use maybe a not so good pun these days. But our goal is to help all students. So if we're there to help all students, we need to make sure, are we really helping all students? How do we know we're helping all students? How do we know that what we're doing is having an impact on our students? And how do we know that one of those subgroups is not really being left behind? So that would be my first recommendation for you, as school counselors looking to go towards the ramp. Maybe do a little soul searching. You can look at, obviously, a few of the examples from the ramp model schools that are out there. I think that would be a great first step to really give you a perspective of what you need to develop for the ramp. Don't get scared. It does seem like a lot of components, and it is, it does involve a little bit of work. I thought it was one of the greatest things for me because it helped my program really get to be where it is today as a model program in the state. But it's really helped us to really sell our program to the Board of Education and to other stakeholders, because you get a lot of questions from people saying, "Oh, well, what does guidance do anyways? What do those guidance counselors do anyways?" And really, school counselors are so much more than what people knew even 10, 15 years ago. The role has changed significantly, and I think that this really will set apart school counselors if we can all move in this direction. We're really able to justify that we're making a difference in students' lives, and we can show what that difference is. So I'd say that's a great place to start. Those examples out on the RAMP website. Again, shoot me an email. I will, by all means, send you all these web links and templates if you'd like. But then maybe take your school data over the next couple of months and really plug in some of these data elements, which should be already available from your administrators in your district. A lot of this is all data that's got to be published to the State Department of Education or the federal government every year. Things that are on your school report cards, like attendance, dropout rates, other things like engagement and school culture and stuff like that may be other factors you'd have to get through some surveys and things like that through your schools. But other factors are absolutely things that are out there that you can easily track. Some states have anti-bullying laws, and the ratings that are out there, the number of the cases that are out there that have happened over the years, how many were harassment, intimidation, or bullying scenarios, how many of those by subgroups. You can really tease out quite a bit, and the question is what data you want to look at. Start small and then broaden from there would be my advice, because it's very easy to get overwhelmed with the data. So I'm going to stop lecturing because I feel like I'm just lecturing at the moment, and I just hate lecturing by itself. So I'm going to wave hi and open it up again. If you have questions on the left-hand panel, even if you're not able to converse through audio or video, you should have access on the left-hand panel of your screen to a Q&A bar. So if you just move the cursor of your mouse over to the left, you should have a Q&A option on the left-hand panel. And if you click that, you should be able to pose questions. And I am at your disposal. So if you have questions, even if you put them into the comments, I will track it down through one of those two means and try to address your questions. But I don't want to feel like I'm lecturing because, again, I can share information and all my insight and what I did going through this process. But I think it's important with anybody starting out, if you have questions or years or whatever, I think it's good to throw them down. Please feel free. Free viewers. For those that just joined us, if you want to pose any questions you have, I just went through a little bit of an overview on some of the resources that are available on the ASCA website under the ramp section. And it basically gives you some model ramp programs and all their submission data, which is great. It's a good example for you to start from and build from, templates, as well as, again, the data so you can kind of see how things evolved. I think it's a good place to start with the programming goals. The templates. And then from there, from these examples, build out your program goals from your school profile data. And I think that's probably the best place to start. So again, feel free to pose some questions. Like I said, if I give you too much more than that, I feel like it's going to be too much information. Still don't see any questions. So by all means, folks, please, let's make this a little interactive. I feel like I'm just a lecturer right now. Any questions? You all got to figure it out? I'm going to post it in the chat for you. So far, I've got nothing here. We have a Google Plus page too. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them out there. No, I'm not getting anything. So at this point, folks, if nobody's got questions, then I don't want to belabor the point and waste everybody's time all night. I don't want to keep you on longer than you want to be. If you have more that you want me to show you, I'll be glad to show you more. And we can do that is I can go out and show you some more examples. I'm going to go back here. So this is the example from the middle school example from the ASCA website. I you're a middle school. In Georgia. For this time of the year, I mean, if some people want to start with the small pieces, you can start with the small pieces. Although I would recommend you get more comfortable with the program goals first. And getting yourself comfortable and familiar with a little bit of the data and the reasons why you're doing it, I think would be a good base to start with, so that way you know what you're comparing it against, what baseline you compare it against. But in looking at this particular example, some of the other things that you could do is to start to develop your annual agreements, or at least start the conversations at this time of the year with your principal. And those annual agreements could look something like this. And these are also part of the templates that are out there. But basically, you're defining what your program goals are, and then you're highlighting what your time is throughout the year and what you're doing as a school counselor. So each school counselor may have different things that they're working on by grade level or by alpha or what have you, and using this as an opportunity to get this reviewed with your principal so that they're aware of what you're doing, and at the same time, again, you're getting this signed off on so that way you're completing one of the requirements for RAMP. Another thing you could start, just to get the kind of ball rolling, is an advisory council. And basically, it has to have at least 2 meetings per year, and you want to try to include all the stakeholders. That is a requirement for RAMP. You'll see it in the rubric. But basically, you want to make sure that you have teachers and counselors and administrators available for these meetings to talk with the community, parents and students. And you want to document the agenda and the meeting minutes for those meetings. Now, those they're good in and of themselves because you can share what's happening, what the program goals are for your counseling department. And then the other good things about those is there's a lot of data shared and recommendations. So I know some people get nervous and feel like they're judging the program, but you know what? Perception is everything. And if you have parents that are out there or kids that are out there that perceive a certain thing, then it's good to know what those perceptions are. It's the only way you're going to battle those things. So I'd say the advisory committee meeting is a good way to achieve it. Another thing you could work on is your school calendar. Hopefully you're doing this, but if you're not, one of the things you can do is set up a school calendar. Everybody's done it a little bit different. This school did it like in a calendar format with their school seal behind it, and actually has all of their things laid out on the calendar by month. So August, September, you can see what they're doing, when they're doing it, and this is relayed to their school community, so that way everybody knows what's happening and when. It just improves communication, and it allows you to really plan your program in a much stronger fashion. So I'd say the calendar would be a good thing to do. You go back to the top. If you want to start again with some lighter things, you can work on your school vision. Basically, what are the things 5 to 10 years out from now that you expect of your students? And what do you believe? What are your beliefs about your students? What do you believe that they can achieve and you want them to be able to do by the time they leave you in your school counseling program? Same thing with the mission. That's usually built off of, both of these are kind of built off of your own school's vision and mission, if they have one of both of those things. Okay, so those are smaller things in the sense that those are things that you can look at and start to build now. One of the things that is important is really your ASCA competencies and indicators, which now really is more transitioned into the mindsets. You can see a copy of that resource out on the ASCA website that was just released a little over, I'd say about a year ago. And basically what your district has to do is basically an audit. So you're basically saying for each grade level, here's an example from the middle school, for each grade level, what are the things that you're doing? What competencies are you addressing at each of the grade levels to make sure that that's lining up with your calendars and you're doing all of those things that you're saying you're doing and what standards they're hitting. So because that also should line up, everything should interrelate. So your school calendar should interrelate with your competencies and indicators and now the mindsets, which should interrelate with your lesson plans, because the competencies and indicators or mindsets should be listed on your lesson plans. And that's something that we'll talk about in a future session, because that will focus more on the action plans and the results plans that come out from small group closing the gap action and your curriculum results reports. It's a little bit more in depth. If you want, you can look at one quickly. What I'll do is you just go back here and take a look and see if there's any questions. If there's not, I will continue to kind of show you a few things. But again, I would like this to be a little bit more interactive. I don't see any additional questions. So if you go out to a curriculum results report, and you can view this particular school. And this is, again, another one of those templates that's in the ASCA templates. It's also available on the grant website, on schoolcouncil.org. So basically, you can see here just what we talked about under what those competencies and indicators were. Those competencies and indicators for each of the time frames that you said you're going to be doing certain things on your school calendar should all align. So all the things you said you're going to be doing are actually being done. And then what the curriculum results report is basically doing is basically saying, okay, here's one of our goals. And that's one of the goals, the third goal that we looked at just a moment ago for grade 6. This is the lesson topic. You're going to be doing it here in this location, so you're basically giving the details, what curriculum do you need, what materials, when did you do it, the process data, which is the number of students affected, basically what you did, and to how many people. So 272 sixth graders saw this lesson. And perception data, what pre-post data or surveys, post-assessments, qualitative data. The student said, I had one student one time said that one of the counseling groups that we did, I wouldn't be alive if it weren't for so-and-so counselor in this group. So those are all good data that can go into perceptual. But you can see here, 31% to 80% could overcome barriers using academic skills. So some way through the course of this particular lesson, students demonstrated their competency. Okay, these are some examples. The outcome is really the end-all be-all through academic achievement, attendance, behavior data, school safety data. What was the final outcome? Was at the beginning of the program compared to the ending of the program, what was the final outcome result? And then again, the implications are really just meant for you to reflect. What happened? Did it work? Did it not work? What was positive? What needs to be improved? And it's really just allowing you to make inferences of what you think happened, and why it worked or why it didn't work, and how you're going to improve it next year if you think it didn't work. And the curriculum results report is basically that. You're just doing for every grade level, for everything that you're doing, you are just basically creating a line saying, this is what we did. Okay, and that's the curriculum results, action plans and results reports. Small group responsive services are basically the same thing. This has got some of the sample lessons in here. We'll take a look at a sample lesson. This lesson plan template is also again out on the website, but you can see they identified it. They identified it to standards. They're talking about advanced standards. What are the objectives that they wanted to accomplish? What materials do they need? Again, so that's on that results reports also. What procedures did they follow? And how are they going to evaluate? Okay. And this is also giving you the pre and post tests, so that what pre and post assessment did they use? The learning style, again, whatever measurements that they use for the lesson. You see they've got everything. As I mentioned at the very beginning of this broadcast, one of the nicest things, and now with some new ones out there, I'm going to do some searching. But the nice thing with what's out there is there's a lot of great resources out there. So even if you wanted some ideas on some other ideas for lessons for 6th grade, for 8th grade, for middle school, elementary, high school, they're out there for you to be able to download and modify as you need to. And again, the nice thing with these is that they're really model lessons, or they're model templates that you really can use and adopt it for your own school. So again, you're not starting at square one. A lot of these really ambitious people have done all of the hard, heavy lifting for you, And now it's your opportunity to really take advantage of that. So I think that's more than enough for one night. Um, I think at this point, my head would be spinning because that's a lot of information, a lot of resources, a lot of things you can go out and take a look at on your own time to try to get up to speed a little bit with what is RAMP, what does it look like, how do I, how far between my program and this am I? Have we done an audit before? Have we not? Do I know what my school data looks like? Do I really know? Um, a good example from mine was at one point we thought at my school we were doing just amazing work, which we were, that the dropout rate was going down every year, we thought we were doing fabulous, and then all of a sudden we looked a little bit closer at some of the subcategories and noticed that for one of our subcategories, the American Indian population, we had a little bit higher of a dropout rate than the other categories, and then we put in place a closing the gap goal, and we were able to address that and lower that for the year after. So, and that was one of our outcomes. But not having known that, not really having taken a deep look at that school profile data, we wouldn't have been able to even identify that goal. So taking us full circle, where I would tell you to start, and this is one of many monthly meetings, and by all means post out to my Google Plus page or email me, whatever is easier for you. And what I would tell you is start over the next month to take a look at that website on the schoolcounselor.org, schoolcounselor.org website under the grant section. Look under resources, look at some of those model programs. Download all of those templates. Start, talking with your department. Start to even maybe use some of those templates or even some of those ideas that are out there. And let's say start to look at your school data, because that'll give you a good picture of where do you stand and what do you want to work on. From there, I would say start to get familiar with developing program goals and maybe look at a short-term program goal that you're comfortable with. That's probably the place that I would really tell people to start until they get a kind of a feel and a comfort level for looking at the school data and measuring the before and the after. That was probably the area that took me a little bit of time to get up to speed with because nobody had ever taught me that. And again, I have some templates that I'm more than willing to share on how do you measure the pre and the post, the increase or decrease in knowledge and skills. Hopefully it's an increase. But I have a lot of good templates that are out there too. And maybe with the next time, I'll set up a Dropbox folder that I'll share with everybody. But hopefully we have a few more people on board at the next monthly chat and a little bit more in our Q&A discussion. Like I said, it's been just me tonight, Q&A with a few people I see on viewers. So I'd like to make this a little bit more of an interactive discussion. I'm hoping to meet your need with any questions you might have. So at this point, I'm going to give it 1 or 2 minutes for questions. Like I said, I haven't seen any yet tonight. Feel free to post a comment or a question. You can find that by scanning over on the left-hand panel of your screen and clicking on the Q&A or the chat. I will check both for another minute or two. And again, if I still haven't seen anything out there, then I'm going to end this broadcast for the evening, and you're welcome to follow up on my Google Plus page or my email if you have any questions or need any additional resources or what have you. And then we'll set up another one of these for a month from now. So I'm going to stop talking. Any questions, please feel free to post them now. I'll do it about a minute or two. I just posted under the chat the RAMP resources page. So if you click that, it'll take you right to the RAMP resources page. And like I said, feel free to listen to the podcast. The RAMP monthly checklist, I actually forgot to mention that, is a good resource. I would suggest that. Take a look at that. Any of those templates are good resources for you. You're trying to improve your ratios for your school. A lot of the schools that posted out there for ramp and posted what the school to council ratios are. I'm not sure if that helps you. I'm not seeing any questions. So at this point, I'm going to end the broadcast. I want to say thank you for anyone that came to the broadcast tonight. I hope it was helpful. And I hope to see you all next month. If you have any questions in the interim, feel free to post them to my Google Plus page or to me. Thank you, and this is Tim Conway signing off. Have a great night.